All right. So today's topic, we were thinking about different topics that would be very helpful to our Facebook women's group of ex Jehovah's Witnesses and just to other ex Jehovah Witness women, since that's our focus. And me and Tyshawn decided that we want to talk a little bit about domestic violence in the Jehovah's Witness organization, how elders will normalize it in order to keep you in and to make sure that you don't get a divorce, and how you can actually be being abused and that is not considered grounds for a divorce. So, Tyshawn, what are you thinking about that?
I'm remembering my husband I only had one happy day in my marriage. The day I got married.
Mm,
My husband started abusing me the second day. And one of the things, a lot of it was mental. And one of the things he did was he put a block on my phone so my mother couldn't call. He threw away all my pictures of all my friends, my childhood friends. He threw away all those pictures. And so when I called the elder, I told you earlier in another conversation about the elder that was like our grandfather, both our grandfathers. He loved us both. I called him, and because of the way they felt about my mom, I said, um, I said he put a block on my phone against my mom. You need to talk to him. He put a block on my phone against my mom. And then he was like, "Your mom shouldn't be." He's the head of the household. If he don't want your mom calling, she should butt out. He just naturally assumed that my mom was trying to take over,
right, without
and
asking any
they
questions.
just right they defended my husband. Which when men do things like that, ladies, young ladies especially, when they try like getting rid of all the pictures of my friends, trying to erase my friends, put in a block on my phone against my mother, that is classic abuse. That
Mm,
is the first thing that all abusers do is isolate you from your family. That's the
yes.
first thing. So if you're dating someone and they don't want to go around your people, or they don't want to be with your friends, they're trying to isolate you, that's a red flag right there that he's an abuser. And
Yeah.
when you were talking, that's what I was thinking about. The
Mm,
elders went along with that. They said they told and called my mother and counseled her about butting in our marriage, and she didn't even know anything about it. She wasn't trying to do that. We had been married for what, a week, and she thinking to herself, "They on their honeymoon. I ain't messing with that." you know.
right, right, right. And I think it's important to point out. I want to make sure that we're not saying that all of these things just have to do with the religion. There are men and abusers out there, and there's women abusers, right? I try to make not to be sexist, but there are abusers out there, and I feel like the religion is just the icing on the cake. They already have narcissistic personality traits. They were going to isolate you from your family, probably even if they were not a Jehovah's Witness.
Right,
However, the religion makes it easier for them, right?
right.
Especially if you have a non believing parent. If you have
You
a
see, my
parent,
husband, he was not raised a witness. He started. He got baptized at 17.
okay,
So he wasn't like me where he was a witness as a baby. So he definitely had all these traits probably before, because his whole family, except for one brother, the brother that's a witness didn't abuse me, but his other brother and sister and mother were abusive towards me. And the sister and the mother and the brother were not witnesses.
right, right.
This was something that was in his family. But
Mhm.
like you said, I think, like you're saying, that the witnesses made it easy for him to act this way, and that's probably why he decided to become a Jehovah's Witness. because it was easy for him to be the way he was as a witness and still have some be high up. Because he was a ministerial servant and a pioneer when we got married. You know, he was choice. He was choice. I had picked a good one as far as many people were concerned because
Right.
he was a full-time minister. That's what a pioneer is, and a ministerial servant is like a deacon. So he
Hmm.
was all of that. You know, right? Real cream of the crop. You know, when I chose him.
Right, right. Yeah. And then I know I also think it's important to point out, like, I like how you said a deacon, right? Because I know that we as ex Jehovah's Witnesses, we tend to want to share these stories with ex Jehovah's Witness women because, of course, they're going to relate more because they in it. But at the same, or they were in it, or maybe they are in it, right? So we have women in our group that are not necessarily fully out yet. You know, they're still
Yeah.
trying to navigate what that looks like, because that isolation from your family is real. I also think it's important to point out, like we were talking about, that the elders are well aware that these situations are going on in the home. I talked about in my video how I was only 14 years old when I would be in judicial meetings and they would be asking me questions about the things that were going on in my home with my parents. So even though you're going to the to the elders, nothing is being done about it.
Mm-mm, mm-mm.
Yeah.
In fact, I was always taking my husband to the elders, trying to get him to talk to him, and he would say, he actually told the elders this is my wife, and I do whatever I want to my wife.
Mm.
And that circuit overseer, there's no reasoning with this man. We can't help this marriage. There's no point in even talking to him. We can't help him. And they stopped. When I would call them, they didn't talk to me no more. They didn't try to help him because the circuit overseer said there's no point in it, so don't talk to him. And then he went buck wild. Then he realized that the brothers wasn't going to talk to him no more.
Mm.
Oh, the stuff he did after that. You know, you definitely will be banned from YouTube if I mentioned it. You know,
Right.
and he went buck wild. You know, but that's what he told him. This is my wife. I do whatever I want to my wife.
Yeah, and you made me think about it. I think a lot of women, they look in that situation and they stay in that situation because if you do have a husband that is somewhat complying, or, like, in your case, he's just flat out letting them know, but a lot of the men don't do that, right? A lot
Mm-hmm.
of them, they still pretend and they go into those meetings and they blame it on the wives or they blame it on the kids. And I don't know if you saw one of my videos where I talked about it. uh, I believe, and I just kind of feel that you are told you're the head of your household, but the actions show that you're not the head of your household. And a lot of the men, they have to feel like they need to exercise, like what your husband just said, your ex-husband said, this is my wife, because
Mm-hmm.
you do feel like as a man, you really don't have control over your household. You have it,
Mm-hmm.
but up until the point where the elders. I also feel like some of the men who would like to make progress. So, like in your case, your husband, he wasn't really much worried, it sounds like, about making progress. But if you are one of the men that are trying to make progress, you have this, I don't know how to explain it, but you pretty much have this deep rooted frustration with your wife taking you to the elders, because the more you're taking your husband to the elders, you're proving to the elders that your husband does not have control over his
Doesn't know how
household.
to run his household. He don't know how
Yeah,
to run his household.
right, right. So, did the elders allow your husband to continue passing the mic? Was he able
Well,
to
he
continue?
was actually, you know, my husband had multiple sclerosis, and that was the biggest problem that I had. Nobody believed me because he had multiple sclerosis, and if you know he's handed So it had to be me. He was disabled. He had multiple sclerosis. So did nobody really believe that he was abusing me? And the whole I say east side of Cleveland turned against me when I did finally leave. And the whole, I went to a store and I never even met this man. And I said, "Hi, how you doing?" I had my magazine. He said, "I don't want to talk to you." I said, "What?" He said, "I don't want to talk to you. You abandoned your husband. You abandoned your sick husband." And I
Wow.
said, "What?" And then he said, "No." I said, "What? No, I didn't." He said, "Well, then why'd you leave him?" I
Mm.
ain't never seen this man and haven't seen him since. And this sister came up. It happened. When the witnesses was busy in that store, the witness, a sister came up and said, "She don't have to tell you why she left her husband."
Mm-hmm.
And then he said, he looked at her. She said to me, she turned to me. She said, "Do you want to tell him why you left your husband?" I said, "No." She said, "Well, you don't have to."
Yeah. Yeah.
But
I'm
that's the
glad she
kind of
stood up for
reaction I was.
you.
I had such stuff like that happen a couple of times because the whole, he had MS, and mental illness is not visible. It wasn't visible at that point, and a whole bunch of people was coming up to me telling me that I had abandoned my husband and I was wrong for leaving him. And I was very young. We got married when I was 21. I left when I was 25. And I would try to reason with people, try to explain my side of the story. I was like, I left because of this. He was doing this. He had MS. What you talking about? He couldn't do nothing with MS.
Mm. Mm. Yeah.
And it was. I was afraid to go on the east side. I for years I didn't even go over there because I'm in Cleveland, Ohio, and we've got like the east side suburbs, and then we got the east side inner city.
Mm-hmm.
And me and my husband lived in the inner city, and then I managed to get into the suburbs. With those friends didn't know my husband, and when I got into the suburbs, I wasn't even going. That whole block, that whole side of town, I wouldn't go because I was afraid what people were going to say.
Yeah, and if you're watching this and you're ex-Jehovah's Witness, you understand it. But if you're not, it brings out that there is a very gossipy culture within the Jehovah's Witnesses, and so even though um, a lot of the information should not go beyond the elders, elders definitely pillow talk with their wives, and then
Hmm.
wives have the groups that they meet together. And then I remember being in hanging out with different women and elders wives, and an elder's wife might want to bring up a point of something that's going on in somebody else's marriage, and I remember there were women that would talk about it, knowing that they shouldn't. But I remember there was this one sister who was very dear to me that I looked at like a mother figure, and she talked about. I love how she would shut those conversations down. She would shut them
Hmm.
down because the elders are not supposed to be discussing this,
Hmm.
and it goes
Hmm.
into the judgment that you get, right? So, the things that you were sharing with the elders who went back and shared it with their wives and it made its way around, all they did
Hmm.
was see that you were leaving him, you didn't have grounds, right? So if you don't have
Hmm.
grounds, they can really care less what you're going through.
And he was disabled, so it was that prejudice. A disabled person cannot abuse anybody.
Mm, yeah,
And so that's one of the myths. He was disabled, so he couldn't. I was lying. You know.
right. Right. I like how you mentioned the young girls. We had a young girl, I've had a few young girls actually, in the group that have brought out of how they have met other men, right? Who are
Mhm.
maybe either disfellowship at the time or maybe they're inactive and they start dating these worldly women, right? And then the goal is they let them know, okay, so I was raised Jehovah Witness, and at some point I'll probably want to go back, right? Kind of preparing
Mhm.
them that they're gonna
Mhm.
go back. And then when they go back, now they have this, you have a 45-year-old who's dating a 24-year-old, who does not understand the dynamics of once you get married and then he decides that he wants to go back into the religion, the level of control that is going to
Mhm.
happen. And your frontal, you're 23, 24 years old, your frontal lobe is not, I'm very psychology, so your frontal lobe is not fully developed and you don't even realize what this is. You're kind of like in La La Land where you're like, oh, I'm going to get married. And you see the happily ever after, but you don't understand the level of control that you're not just given to your husband, but you're actually given to the organization at that point when you marry them.
Yeah, I want to share this point. I was actually married for 22 years to this fool.
Mm,
I was with him for 4 years. We lived together for 4 years, and then my mother told him, you know, which is just amazing to me how well she knew me. She told him when I was still with him, she told him, my daughter's gonna leave you. She said,
mm,
I'm not even worried about it. My mother said, my daughter's gonna leave you because I did not raise her to take this. And I'm just, when she gets enough, she's gonna leave him. And I really did. I beat the crap out of that man.
mm,
He was calling me names and talking, just verbally abusing me. And I jumped up and I just knocked him out of his wheelchair and started punching him. And my mother was there and my cousin was there, and they pulled me off of him and they took me out of there. Then his mother came and got him, and I found out I had busted his lip open. And his mother, he was too ashamed to tell his family that it was his wife that had beat him up. So he told them that it was my cousin who was a man.
mm,
And his mother put a restraining order on my cousin for something that I had did. And my cousin had just got out of jail. So that was really bad,
yeah.
for my cousin. But
And I,
what I want to share is that I even after that I went back several times. I went back to him several times. I would go to a talk or read a watchtower about marriage and just feel bad. And I felt like a failure because y'all remember from my other video, I had scrupulosity. I was worried about sinning. In my mind, I have committed the worst sin. I felt so bad that I beat him up. I was like, that even made me more subservient to him because I had to pay for that in my mind. I had to pay for it in my mind, beat him. So I had to be even more good, more loving, more submissive. And I would go back to him. And one of the reasons I went back, I went to this assembly. I never missed a meeting except for me being in the hospital. I always tried to go to the meetings when I wasn't in the hospital. And I went to this assembly, and there was this woman, and it was a black woman, like in her 50s or 60s, and the elder giving the part at the assembly was like in his 30s, and she was talking about how when she was studying the Bible, her husband would beat her,
mm,
and at one point she was pregnant, and he knocked her down the steps, and she almost lost the baby. And then in the next sentence, she said, "But my baby survived, and I survived, and I got baptized. And my husband still opposed me, but I endured, and everything's fine now. And then the brother that was given, the elder that was interviewing her said, and I'm the baby. So
Wow.
everybody like applauded. It's like, oh wow, look at her reward for getting beat by her husband and enduring that abuse. Her son, who almost died, is now an elder. You know, and I seen that, and that would be, my husband would do mean things to me because disabled people can get physical too, and he would do things to me, and I would be thinking to myself, why can't I endure? Why can't I be like her? Why can't I take it?
Mm.
Why am I letting this get to me? Why can't I just take it like she could? Maybe I could have a child then. Maybe that's why Jehovah's not blessing me with a baby,
Mm.
because I can't take this, and I
Yeah.
felt guilty for leaving.
And I think it's important to point out, that domestic violence can go either way. So in no way, are we condoning your behavior of what happened. But I do want to point out to the channel is that when your Jehovah's Witnesses do not believe in seeking outside counsel, and that's why domestic violence can be so crazy in this religion, because if you were to talk to your doctor or to talk to anyone else, they would pretty much let you know that you and your husband both, whether it's you are being the abuser or you abusing each other, that you need to seek some type of help. And the problem here is you are not allowed to seek outside counsel. And so this is just a build up. This is just, a fire that's just waiting to just explode, because you are going to the brothers and you're trying to get help, and you're told you're not preaching enough, or you're not going in field service enough, or you need to win him over without a word, instead of the importance of getting some type of counseling.
Mhm, mhm.
Yeah. And I know our time is going to be up here soon. We said we want to do some quick ones. So, what is your takeaway that you would have told your younger self? Like, what is your, Tyshawn, listen moment when it comes to domestic violence in the organization?
I would have put my arms around myself and said, "Love yourself. Love yourself.
Yeah.
You're beautiful. Love yourself. You don't Being a wife doesn't mean you have to be abused. Love yourself." I would have told myself to love yourself before I even got married, if I could have talked to myself. And then I would have, another scripture that I never even thought about
Mm.
asking myself is, what is the capable husband?
Oh, the Proverbs 31, the capable wife,
What
right?
is the capable? What do you look for in a husband? And
Mm.
if I could have sat myself down, because I had, oh man, there were the two worldly men in particular that if I had married them, I probably would be so happy right now. I probably have about 10 kids, and we probably would have been, because I went to a college prep, a rich school. We could have had kids. They wanted kids. We would have had 10 kids. I'd be living in Beverly Hills, you know.
Yeah,
But
no, yeah.
I did not marry them because they were worldly. They were
Yes,
worldly.
yes.
And if I could sit down, and this is what I want every young Jehovah Witness girl that's not married, I want y'all to show me the scripture
Mm,
that
mm, mm,
says that you are a good man because you're a Jehovah's Witness.
mm.
Show me that scripture. Ask the elder to show you the scripture that says what a good man is. Don't none of them say, there's no scripture in the Bible that says if you want a good man, he has to be a Jehovah's Witness.
Well, okay, so I'll chime in on that. Where that scripture that they use is unevenly yoked, right? So I'll end this by saying my husband is not a Jehovah Witness. And I think about, and that's a whole nother video. I think about when I was growing up as a Jehovah's Witness and I was groomed. Had I married, the person that I was groomed with, um, I probably would have children that are Jehovah's Witnesses, grandchildren that are Jehovah's Witnesses, and the goal with that is because that's going to keep you in. Where for me, in my
Mhm.
case, my husband is not a Jehovah Witness, and me waking up was very hard, but I will say it's been a lot easier because he's not a Jehovah Witness. I just had to sit down and have all the uncomfortable conversations with him, the things that I had never told him that I went through while being raised a Jehovah's Witness. But once we got past getting that part out, things made so much more sense. And so, yes, I am one of those women that says I'm with Tyshawn. There's another shout out to T. I need to put her thing in the chat of her husband basically checked off all the boxes except for he wasn't a Jehovah Witness, and she has a video where she talks about if she would have not married him simply because he was not a Jehovah Witness, and the Jehovah Witness guy that was trying to date her was a hot mess, basically. And so,
Mhm.
yeah, just
Mhm.
because you are a Jehovah Witness man, or, okay, let's not be sexist,
Mhm.
a
Right.
Jehovah
Right.
Witness woman, just because she's a Jehovah's Witness woman doesn't make her a Proverbs 31 wife. It's so important. But yeah, me and Tyshawn decided we're gonna do these little Sunday or going into Sunday late night snippets in our PJs. It's kind of some fun things for us to do. So until our next subject, and if you're watching this video and you think of a topic that kind of hit you while you're listening to us, put it in the chat. Let us know what you would like our next video to be about. But until next
And
time,
subscribe.
subscribe. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And we will see you next time.
See you.